What is going on, guys? It is Spud here, and welcome to the final episode of the roundup for the 2025 season. And EWC, compared to last year's EWC, was 10 times better. It was magnificent. It was genuinely, for me, I think it was better than Champs. Obviously, Champs is more important for the legacy of the players, but I just think EWC was amazing this year. Obviously last year was its first year, so obviously there's going to be issues for the first year. This year it was completely different in my opinion. I wish the singular limb wasn't a thing, but apart from that, this was so good. And OpTic carry on from their champ success and win the EWC, showing that they ultimately finished the season as the best team in the world. Shotzzy gets MVP. However, I actually think it should have went to Dashi, but that's not a problem. But this event was amazing, including probably the best series I've ever watched, genuinely, and that was between OpTic Gaming and Team Heretics for to get to the final. It looked like Heretics had it in crazy circumstances. OpTic managed to bring it back with a crazy 1v3 clutch from Mercules. We have to talk about Mercules' impact. Just crazy. FaZe, on the other hand, surely having a roster change next season. They don't even get out of pool play, losing to Omit. They should have lost to Omit twice, but they only lost to them once. FaZe are definitely going to have to make a roster change. And 100 Thieves, top 8 placing, they couldn't beat OpTic in the quarterfinals. And it's an early exit for what ended up being a disappointing end to the season for the Thieves after a pretty good Major 3 and 4. Obviously, I am really against the clock here, so this is going to be relatively quicker than I would have probably liked to have done this episode. This is going to be the last episode for the foreseeable future until we get some big WrestleMania news in a couple of months. But I just want to say a massive thank you to all of the support we've had on the roundup this year. Obviously, it's been fun. There's been times where it's not been enjoyable, but EWC and Champs made up for that. An OpTic win. So the OpTic players have just earned $350,000 each, I believe, in the last month and a half from 2 Call of Duty tournaments. Ridiculous money. So we won't do highlights for many games. We'll just talk through them. I want to just say first though that the Challengers teams did actually do all right. We're going to start with the first game of the tournament, which was OpTic versus 5 Fears. Now, 5 Fears weren't even originally meant to be at this tournament. These are the ones that replaced the Royal Ravens. And obviously Capsidal is on this roster because he got dropped from Cloud9, Exceed, Fire, and Hixie. And OpTic comfortably win 3-0, as you'd probably expect. Nothing really to talk about here. Hugh was the MVP of this series with a 1.41. Very nice from the Nuke. I just want to say this comment, completely agree. We do need a longer season, and I think we need expansion. I think we do need 16 teams, and I think this tournament has shown why we need 16 teams in the league. Will that ever happen? I think it will in the future, but for now, I don't think so. I really hope next season isn't 4 majors Champs EWC, but I feel like it will be as well. This season flew. Like, it actually was ridiculously quick. Then we had that other Group A match, which was G2 versus Cloud9. Obviously, Gwyn's debut, and Cloud9 comfortably win here. He drops a 1.3. The AR, Sib and Spart with really nice stat line here. 1.4s across the board for them. Yeah, G2 have had a really rough end to the season here. Not making champs, obviously, has an impact. But I just think in general, they've just been really poor the last few years. I mean, ever since they got that crazy comeback against Ultra in, um, I think it was Cold War Grand Finals at one of the majors. Ever since that, they've just not really done anything as an org. I would rather they were called Minnesota G2 or G2 Minnesota, but I think they'll keep the Rocker branding. But it's just been rough for them. As you can see, there's a lot of games to go through, so I'll try my best. Then we had 100 Thieves versus Gentlemates. Yeah, Gentlemates. This was a close series. You know, Thieves were not dominant, but it was a 3-0 win here for them. Kismet, look at that, 79 kills, whereas DiamondCon got 38. Kismet was good here. Ghosty got MVP. I think it should have been Scrap though, if you look at the damage he got, and he actually got more kills than Ghosty. But yeah, a good win there for Thieves. 2 kick-off pool play. And then we had Surge versus Team Orchid. So obviously Vancouver Surge were going to be one of the favourites coming into this tournament. You know, they got second at Champs. Obviously, we know they finished second at EWC. They are just the Silver Surgers, I'm afraid. But Orchid did win a map, but that's all they could win. Not great, really. Beans didn't impress on this team either. I think Bance is retired now as well. You know, big play for the EU scene. In the day. Also, I believe Adam Assault, 2018 World Champ, has also retired. But Surge played well here. Pretty straightforward. Obviously, the S&D was a bit rough, but apart from that, they played well. And then we had Movie Star Koi versus Team Falcons. Obviously, this is Toronto Ultra, if you're not aware. Against obviously the home team Falcons, who had a lot of support going their way, but it was a 3-1 win here for Koi. Abe's debut. Abe played quite well at this event. I thought he did alright. But I actually want to give a big shout out to Insight, because Insight played pretty well at this event, I think. It was his best COD all year, surprisingly enough, and I'm interested to see what Koi do next year. But yeah, a 3-1 win here for them. Pretty dominant control. RCT's had a rough one here. As did TJ and X. Nid Pred was the only player that actually shot back, basically, at Koi, but we kind of expected Koi to do pretty well in pool play. And then to finish off Group C, we had Boston Breach, who obviously came third at the event. They were playing Team War, a third at Champ, sorry. They were playing Team War, and Team War did take map 1. But apart from that, that's all they could do. If we look at the stats here, Cammy probably got MVP. Oh no, it was given to Purge, actually. On the other side, Neum did alright, 9,000 damage, did get the most damage in the lobby, but ultimately didn't mean anything as Breach went to the 1-0 part of pool play. Like I said, there's a lot of games. I've got pool play is quite long, but I quite like the pool play. This is the first game of the tournament we need to talk about, because somehow Omit battled this. They were 5-1 up against FaZe, and FaZe won 5 in a row on Protocol, or 5-2. But FaZe ultimately somehow won this series. They didn't play well. Celium statistically did, but no one played well on FaZe. Craze was really good. I was shocked by how good Craze was. If I'm right in saying this guy was rumoured to sign with Cloud9, but something fell through. So obviously that didn't happen. And ultimately that is a bit disappointing for them, because he could have probably been a big difference. But yeah, this was a really good series, and you know, as soon as I saw FaZe win this, I was like, oh fuck's sake, FaZe are actually gonna bring this back, like, fully, aren't they?
Destroy.
Like, have a good tournament, I mean, I predicted them to win, I think.
And FaZe are back on the attack again.
They went straight down the elevator shaft and straight into A. The confidence is flowing. Is that the plan again? Or is the curveball for a moment going to be there? Something landed from Draza. Is that information enough? Posturing from both these two teams, 1 minute and 15 on the clock.
Yeah, same idea for a bit in terms of how they wanted to contest A. Play it through field side. But they haven't seen anything, so now they're starting to get a little worrisome about what's happening at B. Cell, Vivid playing with one another up top as Draza tries to get the RC in, but immediately countered. We reset 55 on the clock.
They're starting to make that move. Omit ready for it. Craze has kind of been caught off guard a couple of times after a really heroic start. Draza, another first blood. You got to find something, Mark. You got to find something. Craze can find one. He finds a way back in, but Draza will sit him down. And oh my goodness me!
One thing I will say is that it seems like there was no ban on trash talking. There was quite a bit of trash talking at this event, and again, I think that made it better. There was actually a mistake. They originally made protocol hardpoint back in and took rewind out, but they realised that was just a mistake, so they sorted that before anyone played a game, which was good. But like I said, I just think this event was 10 times better this time around. And then we had our other game in Group D, which was Team Heretics versus Project 7. Obviously, Project 7's was originally Omit Brooklyn's roster, just you couldn't have two Omit teams. And this was very comfortable for Heretics. Rencor with a 1.91. Not really much else to say about that. We kind of all expected Team Heretics to win this series. But Project 7, yeah, they got close in the S&D, but that's all they did. Otherwise, this was a pretty convincing win for the Spanish org. So that was all of the first round of the pool play. So then we had you had the 1-0 qualifiers. Whichever team won goes straight to the quarterfinals as group winner, and Surge beat Thieves. I don't think this was a massive shock, but I thought Thieves would win. And obviously looking at it, I expected OpTic to win Group A, so I kind of wanted to play Surge in the quarterfinals over Thieves. But Surge win this 3-2. It was a really nice... Abuser, by the way, was the best player for Surge this weekend. Envoy had a really rough one here, a 0.74. Not great. Thieves attempted the Neslo, but just couldn't do it. The hard point was very strong from Vancouver Surge, and they deserved to win this series. They were really good. I think Envoy and Ghosty really struggled this weekend for Thieves. Obviously, they are the worst two players on that team anyway. I don't think that... I can't see them doing a roster change unless they're able to get Simp, Abizi, or Celium on the roster. That's the only way it'll happen. And then we had OpTic versus Cloud9. Now, I expected this to be... It was relatively close to the last two maps, but the first map wasn't. But fun enough, everyone went negative on OpTic's side except Mercules, who had a very good series and was comfortably the best player here. Spart, though, after that really good series against G2, was not able to show that again here with a 0.75. Kremp had 5,500 damage as well, which wasn't great. But OpTic just held on and were able to win, and kind of expected OpTic to be first seed, so to get first in their pool play, but it was never going to be easy because there was obviously two CDL teams in there. But they managed to do it, so yeah, well done to OpTic. And that obviously sent Cloud9 to a deciding match against either G2 or 5 Fears. And then we had Heretics versus FaZe, and with how FaZe played against Omit, I actually did think that Heretics would beat FaZe here, and they did 3-1. The last map was crazy ending. Simp and Draza again, bit rough series is. Super was given MVP here. I'll show you the ending though. Some of these Skyline Heretics maps are just crazy.
Do things like this, lay in wait. Simp finds one, finds two. We'll now have 15 more seconds on the timer. There's going to be a player on the hill. Simp will be cleaned up, actually. Mistakes being made somewhere. But, well, I mean, for now, you will see them go into the lead for the first time in this matchup. We will see a P3 and we'll settle it in the kitchen.
Tie game. Somehow, FaZe Clan are not done just yet. 3 in a row for Celium. He's gonna nip at the toes of medals. 10 more points for Team Heretics to put this one away, and Real gonna shut things down. FaZe Clan find their way in, and 3 go down.
They do indeed. Renkor's gonna try and come back into this, but he needs his boys to arrive, and they're spawning in the far corner of the map. 8 seconds still left on this. You're trying to set up a pinch. I don't know if you have time for this to come through. You lose the initial fight, so there's gonna be a pinch strike that will slightly favor. 2 points needed for FaZe. Heretics will break back in. 5 on the clock for them is required. Draza, you gotta go and touch at some point. You gotta send. You won't get there. It will be the Heretics who see it out. And do things like this, lay in wait. Simp finds one.
Massive there for Heretics. If we went to a map 5, I would have probably went for FaZe. Honestly, I would have went for FaZe on rewind. But yeah, well done to Heretics. That's a huge result to get them into the quarterfinals at 2-0. And then our final 1-0 match was Team Breach and Koi. Apart from this round 11, which I'll show you, this was a very one-sided performance, and I believe Abe will have got MVP here. Doesn't actually say. I'm going to go with Abe though. And it was almost a clutch here as well. Oh, it's not going to show you. Well, we can't show you that one. I do apologise. But it was obviously, apart from that, it was a very dominant series. So then we had our losers round 1 matches. So basically, if you lost here, you're home. You finish in 13th to 16th. I mean, you still get, I think, $10,000 each or $5,000 each, which is still good. But first of all, we had War versus Falcons, and this was a very easy win for the Falcons, and the Saudi fans were very happy to see this. It just shows sometimes that there is good players in challenges, but you know, two challenges teams did get into the last 8, so they have to get the credit they deserve. And I still think it should be a 16-team league, but I do also think at the same time there is some teams that will just get absolutely slammed every week. That was Assault's last game in Call of Duty, I believe, as well. MVP here will have went to Pred. Obviously, Pred is the best player on this team. We already knew that, but let's see what roster they have next year, Falcons. I'm interested. I think they'll like to keep Exnid if possible, but we'll have to see what they do. Then we had Team Orchid versus Gentlemates, and this one was won 3-1 by Gentlemates. Everyone went positive on the Gentlemates side, everyone negative on the Orchid side. I believe that is Bance's last game as well as a pro. Beans had a really rough series here, especially because, you know, I thought it was unfair that he got dropped from Ultra, but I think it was probably the right decision. If you saw how Abe played Kleenex on the flex, it clearly worked. They almost got to the finals. And then we had Project 7 versus Ormit, and obviously we didn't know how Ormit were going to react after that FaZe, that massive chalk against FaZe, and they did lose map 1. But after that, it was pretty smooth sailing for Ormit for the Challengers champs, and they do send Project 7 home. Standy and Yuli had a pretty rough, and Prolo as well had a pretty rough 2 matches here. Brack played okay, statistically, for Project 7. On the other side, everyone played well on that side, and Mac got given MVP by the fans. And then we had FaZe versus G2, and this was a shock because I think a lot of people expected G2 to win this, but FaZe win 3-2 and don't go home in joint last, even though they were only here because of Royal Raven's situation. They end up having a pretty good series. I'd argue everyone played pretty well on the FaZe side. I think Geo, in my opinion, was the only player that didn't have a great series here. But this is unacceptable for G2. It's not on. Fire gets MVP though, I believe here. 15,000 damage, a very good series, and a very comfortable search and destroy to win this. Obviously, it means FaZe have to play Cloud9, but even then, they have obviously guaranteed a little extra money, and they get to play another game, so it's not the end of the world. If they lose, or if they won it, or if they lost it, to be honest. But obviously, they'd want to win it. So then we had our last chance quote, our losers final. So basically, whoever wins goes through as the runner-up in that pool player group. And Boston Breach beat the Falcons 3-2. Search and Destroy coming up clutch for Breach. Again, Pred was the best player on Falcons. On the other side, MVP Purge again? Yeah, Purge. Purge had a pretty good couple of series here for Boston Breach in the ones they won. And it sends the home team out in 9th to 12th. Obviously, it's a bit disappointing for them, but they would have hoped to. I think Falcons realistically would have hoped to have got in the top 8. And then we had 100 Thieves versus Gentlemates. And 100 Thieves played better than we expected. But again, Envoy didn't have like a series to remember. That's Gentlemates' season done, and that's probably a good thing that it's done because it absolutely stunk. They were basically the Boston Breach of last year. I genuinely wonder what Gentlemates are going to do next year. I think they're going to have to put some money into getting some big players. I mean, I don't think that Gentlemates should keep anyone on that roster. Just have a clean just cleanse the roster and then get a new one. Then we have, I think FaZe versus G2 is a shock, but this shouldn't be seen as like a shock because of what happened when they played each other in the first game. They played against each other in this tournament, but OpTic beat FaZe, but this was pretty comfortable. They win 3-1. FaZe go home in pool play. This is a huge shock. This just sums up the end of the season for FaZe, and this is why a roster change is needed. A roster change was probably needed last year, but they won EWC, so they stuck with it. They obviously won the first 2 majors, and then after that they've dropped off. Draz has had a really rough end to the year. Simp has had a terrible end to the year. There was people saying that Simp would be. There was genuinely people that were saying Simp was going to be the #1 player of all time if he won champs. And now they didn't win champs or EWC, and now people aren't even putting them in the top 6, top 5s. You know, Shotzi's in the top 5s debate now because of the last couple of months, and obviously last year as well. Mac had a really good series here, and OpTic got to crush FaZe's key. And FaZe go home in pool play. So what is the future for FaZe? I don't know what FaZe are going to actually do next year. There's definitely still a possibility they stick. There's a possibility where it's a BZ, Celium, Simp, and a new 4th. There's a situation where 2 of them stay. I just don't know. It's unpredictable at this stage, and we won't hear anything for a while on the FaZe situation. But I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with Thieves, and maybe even Cloud9. Potentially, or Gentlemates or Falcons. You know, Falcons are in there as well. Potentially to pick someone up. And then we have another big shock, FaZe, who, they almost got reverse swept here, but who weren't even originally meant to be at this tournament, beat Cloud9. They beat 2 CDL teams to advance into the top 8. What a remarkable story. And Capsidal, yeah, he might have had an absolute stinker, but the fact is he got dropped from Cloud9, but he's got further in the tournament. Fire and Hixie here were definitely the best players for FaZe. On the other side, everyone played well on the Cloud9 side statistically, but they lost the series to a Challengers team. It's unacceptable. That map 5 was very, very dominant from FaZe. Fire as well in map 1, 2.3 KD. But then they started to bring it back. Cloud9, but FaZe got it. And you know what? Big credit to Exceed as well, because, you know, everyone calls him a shitter and stuff like that, and they managed to pull a bit of an upset here, so good for them. And then we move on. So pool play is very, very long, as you can tell. And then we have Heretics versus Breach. This is obviously quarterfinals. It is single elimination. Once you're out, you're out. Unless obviously you get to the semi-finals, there is a 3rd place match where you get a bit of extra money and a bronze EWC trophy. And Heretics win this 3-1. Metals had a really good tournament in my opinion, and this was one series where he was just really good. You know, Breach top 8, probably their level. I know they've obviously got 3rd at champs, which, you know, was a really good achievement. I think Breach had a good year in the end. And then we had Surge versus FaZe. FaZe almost took the control, but they couldn't get it. And it's a 3-0 for Surge. Everyone played well on the Surge side. Exceed played well on the other side. It was always going to be tough for them. But they did well to get to the quarterfinals. You know, I didn't expect it. I don't think anybody except those players themselves thought they could get into the top 8. They get some nice money, and hopefully they might get to be on a CDL team next year. And then we had Koi versus OpTic. I thought Omit would put up a better fight than they did. I mean, the round 11 in the S&D, that probably just changed the whole thing. But Insight and THIEVES with very nice KDs here. Vivid had a bit of a rough one, so did Mamba and Mark. But Omit go home top 8, not terrible for the Challengers champs, but I think after how they played both games against FaZe, I think they probably thought they could win this series going into it, but Koi just had a bit too much for them. And then our final quarter-final game was OpTic versus 100 Thieves, and OpTic win this 3-1. Very convincing win, except the search and destroy. Dashi and Mercules, the main players here for OpTic, which is, you know, this is why for me, Dashi should have been MVP. Envoy drops a 0.67, a terrible series from him, and a 0.8 from Ghosty. I mean, it was tough. It was very tough for Envoy. Now, 100 Thieves, 1 minor 2, 1 major 3, 1 major 4. Successful season? Yeah, it's a good season. For how much that Nadeshot paid for the roster, is it a good season? Building a super team and not winning champs or EWC, but especially not winning champs, it's disappointing. I believe if any of the FaZe players are available to upgrade on Envoy or Ghosty, they do it. If not, and it's the same team next year, I still believe that they are going to be one of the favourites going into the tournament. It'll be OpTic versus Thieves versus FaZe, in my opinion, unless Falcons can pull off a god roster. But it's not a great end to the year for 100 Thieves. Top 8 at champs and top 8 at EWC is not what anyone predicted. But my god, except the grand final, these semi-final matches were just crazy. So we had Surge versus Koi, which went to a Game 5 round 11, which was won by Surge. A boozer with some clutch players. Honestly, this S&D was ridiculous. There was so many like ridiculous moments from both teams. And then the play from, by the way, I just want to say Insight and Joe played well here again. They call it Surge Ice, but you should have, when you see what Nasty does, like he almost literally, it was almost the worst thing I've ever seen.
Abe on the close door. If anyone goes for it, now's the time with the stuns. Is anyone here? The trophies are good. The damage? RC! Oh! 2v1! The hopes of movie star Koi rest on Jamie Craven.
The stones are nasty to call that in. The utility, everything around him. And the RC gets called inside for the 1v2.
It's all hit the fan. Insight now has to win a battle against 2 Jackals. Nasty and Abuza. Wait for your moment to strike. Throw your shoulders. Here we go. Insight opening shots. 1v1. It's a mirror match. It's a reversal. The last time we were here, Abuza walked away with it.
Insight to make the push for the 1v2. Abuza holds it down.
Nasty is very lucky, and he tweeted like how he's so lucky that Abuza clutched up that 1v1. Right. This genuinely might be the best series of Call of Duty I've ever watched, but only because OpTic won it. Heretics get reverse swept here by OpTic. Which is just the way it happened, the way the first 2 maps happened. It's all just, it's honestly, it's just crazy. If we look at the stats, shotzzy here MVP. Which is understandable. Obviously had a very good, a really good performance here. But I'm just going to have to show you the first 3 maps because they were just, I'm speechless.
Last chance, it has to be super, or otherwise we're going to see another hard point.
Do you get the tick? Do you get the tick at that old time? Because you at least have one player off the rotation. A big one-on-one, Mercules loses it.
249. Heretics have the numbers in the hill. And a trophy system to keep him safe. Full flood from the front. Do you predict this? Redcore gets the opener. Metals with the follow-up. It's just up to Mercules. He's going to get pushed back. 240, 249.
Last push for OpTic. Everyone spawning over towards that P2 side. Hook is going to invest on the route. It might be too long.
He's got to go. He's got to find some contesto from the front. Metals finds the opener. The flank is shut down. Instant classic. It's a 250, 249. Oh my goodness. It's pandemonium.
Super doing super power.
Obviously, there's a lot of Heretics fans, a lot of Koi fans, OpTic fans, Falcon fans. The event was amazing, honestly. I can't believe how good it was this year around.
Maybe that.
By the way, this was 5-1 at one point to OpTic.
OpTic stacked up. Should understand that the resources are going to be favored in Super, but you're absolutely right. They're going to step right on up. If Super hits the trigger on this Hellstorm, he will get the pings of where everyone is, and yeah, that will push OpTic back just a touch, and here come Heretics.
This is going to allow Rencore to take so much space up through the middle of the street. Everyone working over towards B, as Rencore's going to try to trap them on the backside of courtyard.
And it hits.
Super opens up with the opening kill.
Metals, is he going to commit for the plant? We've got a long route. Rencore finds another 4v2 situation, down to shotzzy and Hook. For what would be one of the more dramatic comebacks. And Rencore finds another, just down to shotzzy, dealt with. No mames! Are you kidding me? From 5-2 down, they take a round 11 win, and Heretics are 2-0 up in the series.
That was 5-1 down there, Alan. That's
True.
5 rounds in a row. The composure on the side of the Heretics is unbelievable.
Maybe that. OpTic.
Obviously just crazy, but then I thought OpTic were going to get 3-0'd and I was fuming about it, but somehow they brought it back in this control round 5.
The tick in his ears. Here comes the play. He's able to find the kill in the Metals. Now turning back around, has Rencore seen over towards Tid. OpTic from the front, just need to deal with Real. They haven't found him yet, but shotzzy makes the play. That's going to be 3 dead. 7v8. First tick looking good. Big win from Merc. Everyone for the spawns of Heretics are coming off staggered. Second tick is going to be done. Rencore trying to clear out topside office. Metals on the way in. He's able to find one, but not the second. It's
1v1.
just down to Super. 1v1 potentially for the game. Stun comes through, it lands. He's waiting. The contest comes in. Last lives. Nade from Hook lands. shotzzy, a little pinch. Able to find it all. And OpTic extend the series.
OpTic with their backs against the wall. Did not have any opportunities.
I don't know how they did it, but then I have to watch this 1v3 again. I've watched it 3 times.
Defense for OpTic.
I've genuinely watched it 3 times and I watch Huke's reaction every time.
Going to pull a page out of the Heretics defensive playbook as they try to hit their big door. Super delayed play coming on the backside of it. Finds the first. Dashy still trying to hang on towards this trophy on tower, but Super puts him in the dirt. Mercules though, proactive as you could ever imagine. Oh, finds at least one trade. Now has an SMG to work with. Tries to change things up. Has his health back and will reset the fight to the 1v2.
Head on a swivel now if you're the Heretics. The bomb is going to get plenty. There's the rookie having insane momentum.
The crowd need to be quiet. It was on the Heretic side and on OpTic side. I get that there's a lot of new fans there, but that's just not on.
Nade over the back. Not going to tag. Has he beat the timing here? Finds the first. Looking for the 1v1. Once again off the reset. Oh! A 1v3 for Mercules. Unbelievable.
He does not shy away from the...
And OpTic obviously end up reverse sweeping. Dashy pulls out the chalk, stuff like that. It was... What a series this was. It's actually ridiculous. OpTic go to grand finals to play Surge. And then there's obviously Koi versus Heretics for top 3. You get a little bronze trophy, and it goes to round 11. This time Koi do manage to win this. I'll just show you the round 11.
It's an $80,000
Yeah, it's $80,000.
round of search and destroy.
Started as an $80,000 match, then an $80,000 map. Now it's down to 4 lives on either side. How do we play this out? Heretics on the offense, full flood day.
You got to be
Shots
passive.
coming through for Kleenex. And now the Hellstorm's called. How do you rotate away from this if you're Heretics?
Do the double doors, and there's somebody watching. This is about Abe. Can he find anything here?
Does this land? Does this connect? Real gets it to 10, but he gets isolated. Hellstorm does not land. 3v4 for Heretics. Is there more heartbreak, or is there heroics for it? Abe over the top of Fountain. The RC comes in late. Oh my goodness! Another massive comeback this time.
And obviously, Koi and Heretics, both Spanish organisations, have a massive rivalry. So this had a bit of a rivalry to it as well. But yeah, massive congratulations to Koi. Third's not bad. Abe's first event, you know. Is he the new Mercules? They were on the same team together at one point. Then we have our grand finals, and look, I thought OpTic were going to win this. But the map 1 was close, but apart from that, OpTic slammed them. And finals MVP was Dashy, comfortably. Obviously, MVP here isn't given to the final game. It's obviously for the whole tournament, which was given to shotzzy, which is understandable, but I believe Dashy should have won it. Most damage in the lobby, most kills in the lobby, least deaths in the lobby. And OpTic are your EWC champions for 2025. I'll show you the winning moment.
Finds the trade, and Surge still hold on. It may be fingertips, but their hands are still in.
And now it's Hook on the pinch. Already finds an opening. You got the numbers. You got to fight them.
Man off, pistol up, but the trades are still effective. And what do you know? OpTic have found it. That was it. It's done. I don't believe it. Dominance on the grandest stage of the gaming world. OpTic are the champions of the ESPORTS World Cup. From champs to the sons of Riyadh, brotherhood prevails. At this new era of OpTic players, world
About lead.
final world esports World Cup 2025 champions.
And there's the winning moment. Massive congratulations to OpTic. They fully deserved it. Obviously, I'm very happy that they won. They fully deserved to win this event. They were the best team by far. Yeah, I believe that Dash should have got MVP. The interview after was funny because shotzzy thanked the visa issues that Beans had at Major 3 for all of this, because obviously Mercules probably still would have been in challenges otherwise. Which is probably the truth. Sad truth, but fair. And now obviously I expect this to fully be the OpTic roster next year. I'd be genuinely shocked if it wasn't. But team of the tournament is obviously just the full OpTic team. Now obviously with the EWC, every team that gets eliminated, their key gets crushed, and then you pick 3 crushed keys from each. You get to pick 3 teams, so you get their crushed key into their trophy, which is really cool. I'm glad that OpTic picked who I would have picked, which was Thieves, who they beat in the quarterfinals, Heretics, who they beat in the semi-finals, and Surge, who they beat in the grand finals. Obviously, FaZe, I think, took Toronto Ultras last year. They didn't even play them in the entire tournament, because obviously Scrap and Draza had beef. So I'm glad that OpTic didn't go for FaZe. The event was amazing, genuinely. The CDL needs to look in the mirror and try and do better, because that was an amazing event. Obviously, champs is champs, you know. This is, for me, I would say it's bigger than a major because of the prize pool, but not as big as champs. That's what I said last year, and people would have probably said, oh, you're just saying that because OpTic didn't win EWC, but they won champs. No, I still stick with the same opinion. But thank you so much for the support we've had on the RoundUp in 2025 CDL season. Like I've said, it is going to be back next season. We're obviously going to have a couple of months off, which I think is needed. When we come back, obviously I'm hoping that we have some big WrestleMania news. We're probably going to do the roundup once every fortnight from now on, though. I just think it's a lot easier for me, and it'll give me the motivation that I can do better uploads, because apart from this one, like last week's episode was really poor quality-wise. I was just doing a quick prediction, and then that was it. Obviously, this one's been a bit different. I know I've not had a webcam on. I'm going away tomorrow, so I'm trying to just get everything sorted. But thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you watch one episode, 5 minutes of an episode, the whole season, you know, is really appreciated. But thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your evening. This will be out on Wednesday as always, and roll on the 2026 CDL season. Congratulations, OpTic. You are the world champions and the eSports World Cup champions. Bye for now.